What if I told you that the end of the world as we know it wouldn't come with a loud bang? No mushroom clouds, no armies marching down Main Street. What if the scariest war scenario isn't the one with explosions, but the one where everything just stops? Your phone dies, the internet vanishes, the lights go out, and suddenly you're alone with nothing but silence and fear. Sound impossible?
It almost happened. And what unfolded in those first 24 hours revealed something terrifying about modern warfare. This isn't science fiction. This is what the first day of World War III could actually look like. And after hearing this, you'll never look at a normal morning the same way again. The morning everything broke. Nobody saw it coming. That's the thing about moments that reshape history. They don't announce themselves. They just happen. One minute you're living your normal life, and the next, everything you thought was solid starts crumbling beneath your feet. It's 6:17 in the morning on the East Coast. Most people are still asleep. Some are hitting snooze buttons. Others are stumbling toward their coffee makers. The world is doing what it always does. Turning, breathing, living. But online, something is spreading. Fast. A flash detected in Eastern Europe satellite data showing movement. The kind of movement that makes military analysts go pale. A missile launch. And within minutes, social media explodes with confusion. People posting screenshots, sharing unverified reports, news anchors appearing on screen looking uncertain, caught between wanting to report the truth and not wanting to cause panic. Then, the confirmation comes. NATO has responded. The first strikes of a global conflict have begun. Somewhere far away, the unthinkable has started. Back in America, nobody's screaming yet. There's no chaos in the streets, just phones lighting up on nightstands, early risers scrolling through headlines that keep changing. Unverified explosion becomes confirmed strike, becomes military response confirmed. The stock market hasn't opened. Planes are still boarding at airports. Coffee shops are opening their doors. Life continues because that's what life does until it can't anymore. But underneath the surface, something invisible is already moving through the country like a ripple through water. Then at 6:45, every phone on the East Coast screams at once. That sound, you know the one. The emergency alert tone that cuts through everything. Most people have never seen a real defense condition alert in their entire lives. Some think it's a mistake. Others wonder if someone hacked the system, but the message is clear and terrifying. National defense condition elevated. Remain indoors. Await further instruction. Breakfast tables go silent. Commuters freeze mid-step. Parents look at their kids and don't know what to say. In the big cities, law enforcement starts pulling out protocols that were written decades ago during the Cold War. Plans that everyone hoped would never be needed. Transit systems begin shutting down. Subways stop between stations. The airspace above Washington and New York gets cleared immediately. Flights that were heading to Europe get called back to the gate. But here's the strange part. There are no explosions, no bombs, just information pouring in, fragmented, conflicting, terrifying. Television networks switch to emergency broadcasts. Anchors read prepared statements that sound like they're echoing from another era. Government officials appear on screen urging everyone to stay calm, but you can see it in their eyes. The fear. The realization that this isn't a drill anymore. As the sun comes up over the East Coast, millions of Americans watch it differently than they've ever watched a sunrise before. They're thinking about something that started thousands of miles away, but is somehow already at their doorstep. By 8 a.m., the entire country is awake. America isn't under attack yet, but it's not at peace either. The world has crossed a line, and there's no going back. By mid-morning, the rhythm of daily life starts breaking apart. The communications networks are still working, but information has become both a lifeline and a poison. Every channel is repeating the same messages. Stay inside, stay calm, don't travel unless you're told to. In Chicago, Atlanta, Dallas, and every major city, People flood into supermarkets. The aisles get packed faster than any hurricane warning ever caused. Bottled water disappears. Canned food vanishes. Batteries are gone within an hour. At gas stations, lines stretch around entire blocks. Engines idle. People argue. Short bursts of fear from folks who just hours ago were worried about being late to work. The government's plan is simple in theory. Keep people informed but not terrified. Maintain order while the military quietly moves into position. But the silence, the absence of actual war, starts eating away at that control. By 10 a.m., false reports spread faster than officials can deny them. Messages claiming missile hits in Los Angeles. Reports of impacts in Houston. They trend across every social media platform. Videos appear showing streaks of light in the sky. Some are real. Many are fake. For millions of Americans glued to their phones, the line between truth and rumor dissolves completely. In Washington, D.C., the White House sits behind layers of barricades. Helicopters circle constantly overhead. Military vehicles roll south toward locations nobody's announcing. In New York, Wall Street hits its third circuit breaker and trading just stops. The market doesn't crash, it freezes. Across the Midwest, power grids start fluctuating, not from any attack, but from millions of people overloading the system all at once. Charging phones, running freezers, powering radios. The fear of losing connection feels as real as the fear of being hit. By noon, every school in the country closes. The Department of Education calls it a precautionary suspension, but everyone knows what it really means. Parents flood the roads to pick up their kids. Interstate highways clog with traffic, not from evacuation orders, but from pure instinct. In just 6 hours, America experiences the first paradox of modern warfare. The battlefield hasn't arrived yet, but its shadow already covers everything. Every screen, every conversation, every choice. When the lights go out. Then at 1:17 in the afternoon, the world goes quiet. Not from explosions, from silence. The kind that hums in your ears when everything that should be working suddenly isn't. Officials had been warning about cyber attacks for hours, but few people understood what that actually meant until it started happening. Within minutes, ATMs freeze mid-transaction, debit cards stop working at gas pumps. The internet slows down, stutters, then dies in patches. Entire regions lose access to online banking. Government websites go dark. Even local news sites stop loading. Social media flickers out like lights in a storm. It's not a total blackout everywhere, but it's close enough. And it spreads fast. Each outage triggers panic that radiates outward like an invisible disease. In cities, digital payment systems fail completely, leaving stores unable to sell even the little they have left. In rural areas, cell towers drop one by one, cutting off entire communities. Emergency radio stations become the last thread of communication. A calm voice repeats the same message through static every 5 minutes. This is a national broadcast. Please remain calm. Federal authorities are responding. The words become a mantra to hold back the panic, though almost nobody believes them anymore. By 2 p.m., hospitals activate their emergency protocols. Backup generators hum to life. Ambulances sit in parking lots conserving fuel. Patients and their families gather outside, desperate for news that can't be transmitted anymore. At home, millions stand beside dead routers, staring at screens that won't load. Parents dig through drawers looking for old radios, forgotten flashlights, anything with batteries. Neighbors who haven't spoken in years start talking across fences and driveways the way people used to, before screens took over everything. The blackout doesn't destroy anything physically, it disconnects. And that disconnection breeds something primal in people. Without information, minds start filling the silence with imagination, and imagination without facts breeds terror. For the first time in decades, the United States feels alone, not as one nation, but as millions of separate people cut off from the systems they trusted their whole lives. By mid-afternoon, one truth becomes crystal clear. In modern war, the first casualties aren't cities or soldiers. their certainty itself. By 6 p.m., the sun drops behind a horizon most people don't even notice. For the first time in generations, America watches nightfall without the glow of cities. Power outages that were regional now blanket the entire East Coast. What little light remains comes from candles, lanterns, and the faint blue glow of emergency beacons major cities enforce curfews. Police cruisers roll through empty downtown streets with loudspeakers echoing between skyscrapers. Return home, stay indoors, remain calm. The words sound hollow even to the officers saying them. In the countryside, families cluster around battery-powered radios. The voices coming through are broken, distant, pre-recorded updates from hours ago. Somewhere a broadcast keeps repeating instructions to boil water, though nobody knows why. Fear has changed its shape. It's not about missiles anymore, not about invasion. It's about the unknown, the invisible front line where nobody knows what's already been lost. At 8:30 p.m., rumors spread about explosions offshore, unconfirmed reports of naval battles in the Atlantic. Without the internet, nobody can verify anything. On highways, traffic has stopped completely. People who fled early are now sleeping in their cars with engines off to save gas. The sky goes quiet except for occasional streaks of light aircraft, satellites, maybe something else. In living rooms across the country, Americans rediscover rituals they'd forgotten. Handwritten notes, whispered prayers, the sound of silence between heartbeats. Some neighbors share their generators. Others lock their doors tight. Trust starts fracturing along invisible lines. But amid all the darkness, resilience appears too. Across countless small towns, churches open their doors. Volunteers hand out food. Amateur radio operators, the ones people used to dismiss as weird hobbyists, become vital links between states. In the quiet, a different kind of unity emerges. Improvised, fragile, human. By 10 p.m., the blackout has spread from coast to coast. The United States, for the first time in modern history, goes to sleep disconnected from itself. The first day ends not with fire, but with silence. The war hasn't reached every home yet, but its shadow now lives in every mind. The morning after and what it all means. When the sun rises again, it brings no sense of normal, only the realization that the world isn't what it was yesterday. Across America, the new morning feels heavy muted. Streets once full of commuters are now lined with abandoned cars left behind mid-journey. Gas stations stand empty, their signs dark, their prices frozen from yesterday. For the first time in decades, silence defines the landscape. No planes cross the sky. No music comes from storefronts. Just the echo of footsteps and the distant crackle of shortwave radios breaking the stillness. Overnight, the government issued its first formal address via emergency radio. A voice most Americans didn't recognize spoke through layers of static. The message was short, almost mechanical. The nation remains intact. Federal continuity is in effect. Shelter in place. Assistance will arrive. But nobody knows when that assistance might come or from where. In homes and makeshift shelters, people start counting what they have left. Food, water, fuel. Grocery stores cut off from their supply chains stay shuttered. Credit cards are worthless. Things that seemed endless just yesterday, power, supplies, connection, are now finite, measured in hours and calories. Yet beneath the fear, a strange calm begins settling in. Neighbors who barely nodded at each other before now share meals by candlelight. Parents comfort children with stories about strength and resilience. Communities that spent years arguing over politics and staring at screens rediscover what it means to simply belong to something real. History rarely announces its turning points. They arrive quietly, hidden in moments of confusion, in choices made by ordinary people just trying to hold on to something familiar. This morning is one of those turning points. By noon on day 2, Makeshift aid centers start forming in schools, churches, parking lots. Amateur radio operators report broken transmissions from overseas fragments, suggesting the conflict is still growing. The war has entered its second day, but for most Americans, the front line remains invisible, not measured in miles, but in uncertainty. In just 24 hours, a nation built on abundance has learned how fragile that abundance really is. The systems that once defined civilization, the power grid, the market, the internet, have vanished, leaving behind only the oldest forms of human currency: trust, courage, the will to endure. Now think about this from another angle. What does China see when it looks at the world? You're one of the most powerful economies on the planet, but you're surrounded on every side by a country half a world away that has 1,000 times more world-ending weapons than you do. That country maintains the most powerful navy in history, the Seventh Fleet, operating right in waters that have been your sphere of influence for thousands of years. Until World War II ended, this was your territory. Now America, which some call an empire, has built and maintained military bases just outside your borders. If you were China, you'd be uncomfortable too. We live in a world where a massive land war in Asia feels impossible. So what do you do instead to expand your influence? You build man-made islands off your coast to push areas out of international waters. You use fishing vessels to ram other fishermen and push them out of the area. And you look across the strait at Taiwan, a crucial point for one of the most important products on the planet: silicon chips that power everything in modern life. If you were China's leader, you'd want that country under your control. It makes rational sense. So what does Xi want? He wants China to be a world power and a world leader. He wants to stay in power and not end up like Gaddafi. It's that simple. And that tension sits underneath everything happening now. The invisible currents of power and fear that drive nations toward conflict. The same currents that turned an ordinary morning into the day everything changed, because wars don't start with declarations anymore. They start with alerts on phones, with networks going dark, with the slow realization that the world you knew at breakfast is gone by dinner. The first day of global conflict ends not with the fall of cities, but with the awakening of people forced to remember what survival really means, what it means to be cut off, to be uncertain, to count your supplies and wonder if help is coming, to look at your neighbors and decide whether to trust or to hide. This is how modern war arrives, not with sirens and soldiers marching through streets, but with silence, with disconnection, with the terrifying realization that everything you took for granted can vanish in hours. The invisible battlefield. And somewhere in that silence, in those dark hours when the power is gone and the internet is dead and nobody knows what's happening beyond their street, people start to understand something fundamental. That civilization isn't the buildings or the technology or the systems. It's the choice people make every day to trust each other, to help instead of harm, to share instead of hoard, to stay human when everything pushes them toward fear. That's what the first day taught America. Not about missiles or tactics or military power, but about what remains when everything else is stripped away, and what remains is either enough to survive on, or it isn't. The world found out which one it would be as the sun set on day one and rose on day two. The war had begun thousands of miles away, but the real battle was happening in every home, every heart, every choice made in the darkness. That's how the world changed forever. Not with a bang, with a silence that forced everyone to decide what they were made of. So here's the question that should keep you up at night. Are you ready? Not for explosions or invasions, but for the silence. For the moment when your phone goes dark and stays dark, when you can't Google what's happening, when you're cut off from everything and everyone you rely on. Because that's the real face of modern warfare. It's not about who has the biggest bombs anymore. It's about who can survive when all the systems we built our lives on just disappear. The scariest part? This scenario isn't some far-off nightmare. The tensions are real. The technology exists. and the first day could start tomorrow or next week or next year on a morning that feels just as ordinary as today. Look at what's happening between superpowers right now. The military buildup, the cyber attacks that already happen daily, the fragile systems we depend on that could collapse in minutes. We're closer to this reality than most people want to admit. Every day, nations are preparing for this exact scenario while ordinary people scroll through their feeds, completely unaware. So what would you do? How many days could you last? Do you have water stored? Food that doesn't need refrigeration? A way to communicate without the internet? And when the silence comes, who would you become? Would you be the neighbor who shares or the one who hides? Think about it, because the world already is. Military strategists are running these simulations right now. They know something most people don't. That modern civilization is far more fragile than it appears. If this opened your eyes to something you hadn't considered before, share it. Hit that like button. Subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. And drop a comment telling me, honestly, how long do you think you'd last if everything went dark tomorrow? Let's talk about the war nobody's preparing for.